Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. I think I show you just about everything I know about quilting in today's tutorial. You are going to learn in this video why I had to pull out my permanent black magic marker and yes, write on my quilt. Oh yeah, I was scared, friends. I show you from start to finish how to use pool noodles to baste your quilt. Backing, batting, and quilt top, all with pool noodles, and maybe some cardboard. And you know I turned my Juki home sewing machine on its side so that I could put some awesome custom quilting on my brand new pattern, Hey Boo. For the first time ever, I have to fussy cut my bias binding. I never had to do that before, friends. Now there is a pattern available for this quilt. It's a one-page pattern. I give you all the fabric requirements, what's needed. I also give you a chart here of how many pieces and parts you need for that particular block. With this one-page download and this full detailed tutorial, you, my friend, are going to be successful. Oh, I almost forgot. Oh my goodness. Okay, so at the end, for all of my faithful viewers, I have a really special announcement. I think that's all for the intro. Enough talking already. Let's get busy making my newest pattern, Hey Boo. First thing you want to do when you're going to make this quilt is to grab up all of your fall fabric. My fall fabric, well, it's in this bag right here, as you can see. And you know what, I don't do much to it. It's not much maintenance at all. I just throw it in this bag, and when I need it, I pull this bag out. The first thing you're going to do is cut out a bunch of squares with all of this fabric. Now for this, I chose to stay in the orange family. Even lighter oranges. I had some burnt oranges. Here's another light one. And it didn't matter what the print was either that's on it. Look at that one. It even has a little bit of green and yellow in it. Anything goes, really, but I tried to stay more orangey. Like this one, it had like hints of orange in it, kind of, maybe not, but to my eye, it worked in this quilt. So it was in. And look at that cutie pie fabric right there. I know. And that one with the pumpkin. So as you can see, I totally chose whatever. It didn't really matter. No, it didn't. Once you have all of your squares cut out, then it's time to go on to the nose. So after several attempts to make this nose on this pumpkin, I think I finally got it. So here's what we have. We're going to put 9 blocks together. The 3 in the center column here are going to be 4.5 by 5.5, 4.5, 5.5, 4.5, 5.5. The 3 on the side are going to be 4.5 inches square. And then you're going to connect it all together with this being the top. Then you're going to fold it in half and you're going to find the middle of the top and the bottom. I'm going to finger crease it there first and over here. I'm going to line these 2 seams up right here and crease it just like that. And I'm just going to mark it just so I know. And you can see here I've cut this already and unpicked it because I did it wrong the first time. So you're going to take a 13-inch by 13-inch square piece of black fabric and you're going to come in 1.25 inches and mark it. And then you're going to mark the middle up here by folding it in half. We'll pretend like this is over here. Sorry about that, friends, but you know, I don't want to waste any more black fabric. I've already wasted so much. Oh my goodness. So all I've done prior to cutting this was simply just fold that 13-inch piece of fabric, the square, in half, just like this. Here's the fold. I'm going to come in 1.25 inches in and mark it. Come up here and note the middle. Then I'm going to draw a line right from this point to this point. And then I'm going to slice it while it's folded. And that'll catch you up to speed where I'm at. So go ahead and take this piece and put it in the scrap bin because, you know, we're not going to use it. And then you're going to open that up and then you should have a triangle like so. once this is open, then I'm going to grab this piece here, find the top and the mark here. And I'm going to lay this right here so that center point is pointing right at the center here. And I'm going to come down about 1/4 inches, just about there. Like I'm going to leave a space right here. And then I'm going to find the center here, that crease mark that I made within the black fabric, the bottom. And I'm going to make sure that it lines up with that mark on my colored fabric. When all looks good, then you're going to come in with your ruler and you're going to use the black fabric as your template. Line it up right along the edge there, and then you're going to slice. Flip it toward me so I can see what I'm doing. Line that up on the black fabric and slice. Now hopefully I got it right this time. Let me flip it back this way. So this is what you should have right here. If I lift that up, this you can throw in your scrap bin. And we're going to line this up like so. The first piece you're going to attach on is this funny looking end right here without the tip on it. And we're going to line up where it squares off right there, or that point right here. And then I'm going to flip this over and line everything up. And then I'm going to pin. And then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch. So I got a little water here on my fabric, but that's okay. We can still keep going. Once you have this piece sewn on right here, then you're going to come over here and you're going to follow this line. This will help you, friends, so make sure you do this part. And you're going to cut this little bit off right here, just like so. Okay, get rid of that. So once you have this piece cut off, you're going to lay this up here and you're going to have a 1/4 inch hang off right here. You can see right there, little dog ear there. So once you sew the other side on, it should look like this. See how there's a V shape going up, like a slant going up there. And then you're going to check and make sure that you are indeed at 4 inches here, if you hadn't already. The next thing is to trim this black piece off. Be careful to only go along this edge as your guide because that's the bottom of the block, remember. And then slice. And there you have the nose, friends, and that was a lot for me. It took me forever to figure this out. Oh my goodness, I have a lot of these scraps laying around, so back in the bin those grow, right? So for this cutie pie pumpkin, she needs a couple of eyes, right? Now you can make them any way you'd like, but this is just the design that I had come up with for this particular pumpkin quilt. And I think she has a lot of sass with these eyes, so I don't know, let me know down in the comments what you think. So these are the pieces and parts that you will need to make one eyeball. But remember, you're going to need 2 eyeballs, as if I had to say that, right? You're going to need 4 half square triangles with the other part black and 1 colorful fabric. Then you're going to need 4 of a different colorful fall fabric. Then you're going to need 2 of these right here to snowball the bottoms of the eyeballs. And these are 2.5 inches square. What you're going to do with these is fold these in half and give them a press. And then you're going to lay them right here on the corner. So you can tell there I've pre-pressed them already. And I'm going to lay that right there. I'm going to open this up right here and I'm going to pin this in place. And I'm going to do this over here with the other one. So remember, this is the bottom of the eye. Next, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew directly on that line and directly on that line. Now that you've sewn this on, you can push these down and you can give those a good hot press. So once you have those pressed down, you should have something that looks like that. Then you're just going to open up the top layer, lay your ruler down and mark 1/4 inch with your ruler right on that seam that you just sewed, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then slice. And you should have those for the bin. And then if I put that like that, you can see that that is nice and snowballed off. And you're gonna cut this one off too. And there's the bottom of our snowballed eyeball. Snowballed eyeball. Wow, okay. Snowballed eyeballed. Or no, snowballed eyeball. Oi. Okay, never mind that. Now you just need to figure out how you're going to put this all together. I think how I'm going to do it is I'm going to connect these two together. And so a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. So you have that, and I haven't pressed that yet, but I will. And then you're going to take this one here and connect those two together. So now these both are nicely pressed, and now I'm going to take this and I'm going to connect it over here to this. Now that this has been sewn on and pressed, now you're going to take this one and right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch. Next, we're going to sew these two together and then add that one on and then add that one on the other end. Once you have all these sewn up, then it's time to lay it down here, right sides together, and make sure that your seams are nicely nested. Grab a couple pins just to make sure, because this is where you'll be able to see if you messed up, is where the dark goes to the color. So it's kind of good just to make sure that, you know, everything is nicely together. And there you have one sassy little eyeball ready to go. Okay, every pumpkin needs a really cute smirk, right? So this is what I've come up with for this pumpkin quilt. We're gonna go with these super simple blocks right here. They mimic some jagged teeth. Exactly what I was going for. Now I don't know the name of this block, so if one of you know, leave it down in the comments. It's a 1/2 square triangle and then with a 1/4 square triangle. So I don't know if it's called a 3/4 triangle. I don't know. You tell me. So anyways, you're gonna need 5 black squares at 6 inches. And you're gonna need 5 different colored squares, not all the same. And then you're also going to need 5 black squares at 5.5 inches. It'll make sense, I promise you. So what you're gonna do first is take and make some 1/2 square triangles. So we're gonna lay this right sides together, the 6 inch block. We're gonna lay our ruler down from corner to corner, and we're gonna make a mark, corner to corner. And then what I want you to do is take it to your sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch on that side and a 1/4 inch on that side, leaving that line open. So once you have it all sewn up on both sides, then you're simply going to come in, lay your ruler down on the line that you marked initially, and then you're just going to slice it right down the center, corner to corner. Next, we're going to press these. Let's press them to the dark side. I'm gonna quickly press these. So this is what you should have right here. Next, you're going to take your 1/2 square triangles and trim them down to 5.5 inches. Now it's important to note here that if you are used to sewing with a very fat 1/4 inch seam allowance, you may want to make your blocks a little bit bigger than what I'm making them and then trim down to size. I tend to sew a very scant 1/4 inch, so these numbers work for my seam allowance. So sorry about that, but I figure it was worth noting, right? Because you can see I'm barely taking any off. So next you're going to shift this block this way so the line is going across, side to side. And then you're going to take and put your 5.5 inch square down right sides together. Then you're going to add your ruler in corner to corner, and you're going to be making a line right across that line that's going this way. So you're going to do the same thing we did in the last step. You're going to sew a 1/4 inch on that side and a 1/4 inch on that side. And you're left with this when you're done sewing, and then you're going to take your ruler again, lay it down corner to corner, and then you're going to simply just slice right on that line that you marked earlier. And then you're going to press, let's see, let's press to this dark side, like that, and like that. I'm going to do a hot press. I'll be right back. So now you've ended up with this right here. You need to take these down to 4.5 inches. So this is how I'm going to trim these. So I need to turn this way so that I can see what the heck I'm doing. So I'm going to lay this diagonal line on my ruler down, and this is what I'm going to look for. All the while keeping that diagonal on that diagonal seam that's, you know, sewn together. I'm going to go 1, 2 inches, and I'm going to find the 1/4, the 2 1/4, which is right there. You go 2 and then the 1/4 line. That 1/4 line is going to be what is at the intersection there in the center. Once I get the 2 1/4 on there, I'm going to shimmy my ruler, and then I'm able to cut. And then shift it. Now I know that that's proper right there once I've turned it. Now I'm going to line up here at 4.5 on the for sure cuts that I just made. So there's one of our blocks for our teeth. So let me show you again on this one. I need to turn it so that I have that long seam looking right at me so I can see it along the line on my ruler. I'm going to go 1, 2 1/4. That 2 1/4 is right there. I'm going to line it up right in the center, and see how that's off right there? I'm going to shimmy my ruler this way so that I know that I am perfectly square on this ruler. Now I know that this is cut perfectly on this side, so I'm going to measure up 4.5 on that angle, line up along there. And there I have 2 identical teeth. Now with this one right here that you get, this is like a bonus half square triangle, but we need this because we have other half square triangles in this quilt. So you should have 5 of these left over. And these 5 you're going to set aside for in the quilt later. Now I did say to go ahead and, you know, make this 5.5 inches or whatever I said, but honestly, go ahead and make it 4.5 inches right now, because that's what's called for in the rest of the quilt is the 4.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim this up. And it's really not a waste because we're totally going to use it. So you should have 5 half square triangles, all in different colors, that you can just set aside for later. Super easy, right? I know. So let me show you how to assemble all of the jagged teeth for your pumpkin quilts. These are just some mock-ups that I had left over. These are all different colors of black too, so you don't really want that unless that's what you're going for. And also, I would not put 2 that are the same, because remember we have duplicates on these. I would not put 2 that are the same color next to each other. I would split them up, but again, these are just mock-ups. So, and this is just to show you how we put that together. This one goes here, and here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe there is 6. I think. Okay, so then this is the top jagged. So there's the main part right here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 12 of these. Next, you're going to take a half square triangle and you're going to put it this way so that the colored part is over here. And the same on this side. These are very easily to get mixed up as well. How's that go? No. Yes? No. Yes. Okay. So there's the start of that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got too many here. I got one too many. Let me take 2 away. When we put this here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 of these, not 12. We only have 10 of these kind of blocks right there. And then you're going to add the black square there and the black square there. Since I don't have any half square triangles handy, I'm just going to use these cut-offs that I have. I'm so sorry, I'm not prepared more for this, but you'll get the gist of it. You want this going this way so the slant goes this way so he looks like, or she looks like, they're smiling. And this is again a half square triangle, and this is a solid, this is a colored fabric here, and another colored fabric would be right here on the other side of that. And same with this one. So you're going up. So you're stacking the smile. And then so it would be like that. And let's see. Like that. This looks a little choppy, friends, but you get the gist, right? You get the idea. And then that goes up there. Yeah, I think. I can't remember. And I just made this quilt too. So hopefully I'm popping the other picture here. I'm smart enough to do that for you. So that way you can literally see how it gets sewn together. And then you just set it in the blocks like you would add all your other normal blocks just onto that in a strip, you know, just like you normally would add blocks together. This is the top right corner or cornerstone, so to speak, in this quilt. And here are the pieces and parts that we're going to put together that make this. This is a really simple way to dramatically change the corners, the inside corners of your quilt, where we're framing, so to speak, the pumpkin face. All you're going to do is take your square here that when these two are sewn together, the side matches up here. Is take this square and this square and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I press to the dark side whenever I can here on this particular quilt. So you can see here I've attached these two. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach this section right here to the square. Right sides together, and then just sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. Once I have these two attached, I then go ahead and press over to the dark side here. Next, I'm going to attach these two together, and then I'm going to attach this to this section. So you can see here, I have pressed that to the dark side, and I press that over this way, because this side is already pressed to the dark side, and we're going to be able to nest these seams. And by nesting, you just line up the seams together, and then the bulk is on this side over here, and then the bulk is on this side over here. You should have 4 of these for your quilt, 1 for each corner. I wanted to share this tip with a lot of you quilters out there who have trouble sewing rows together straight-ish. I know I have a lot of trouble with it. Early on, I learned to chunk my blocks together and then sew the bigger picture together. Let me show you what I mean. Once I have the eyes all done, I create its own separate block here and over here. The nose, remember here, was just these 9 blocks right here. And then I just added those to it, chunking it up to that block. And then I made this chunk over here that did incorporate part of the mouth in there too. And then you can see here the cornerstones are all sewn up on all 4 sides. And then I've chunked this together. So what I've created is just chunks of little blocks together. And what that does is make it a lot easier to sew this all together. So then you just have the one big long seam here and here and here when you do go to sew it together. So I will sew this to this and this to this, and that'll be one row. And then I will sew this whole row together here, and then this big chunk row here together. And what I'll do down here, which I haven't done yet, is sew this little chunk to that little chunk. And then when these are sewn together, I'll sew that to that. So that's how I easily get through this process without a major headache and without a lot of, you know, wavy seams, if you know what I mean, which I think you might. Now that didn't take long, did it? Now that this is all sewn up, I am going to put some borders on, and I may just round the corner, so stay tuned. So where it concerns borders, I think I'm going to go with a 4.5 inch strip around the entire quilt. And I chose that number because it just keeps in line with the 4.5 inch squares that are in this quilt. The tip that I want to share with you when I do put on borders is that I like to work with long yardage that is with the grain. The reason why I like to cut my borders with the selvage, with the grain of the fabric, is because that is the least amount of stretch in that area of the fabric. If I were to cut across the fabric, I would get a stretch and possibly warping when I went to sew it and press it onto the quilt top. That's why I like to buy long yardage and cut one strip rather than to have to piece it together. But I've pieced them together too when they've also been with the selvage. So that's a huge tip for you if you tend to get wavy borders and such. That tip alone will totally keep your borders nice and straight and in check. After measuring the quilt top, I decided on 4 strips that are 4.5 inch in width at 72 inches in length. Or what I think I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to fold this over this way. So I am going to fold it longwise with the grain this way, and I'm going to cut off the fold and the selvage at the same time. That will give me the 4 strips I need immediately, and I only have to cut just the one time. So I'm going to lay this out, fold the rest of this over so it's a lot easier to pull toward me. See how things quickly change in the sewing room? I get these bright ideas, right? Well, we'll see if this one works. So I am going to line this up here on a line on my mat. So I'm going to come in about 5.5 inches so that way I clear the selvage and that fold area. And I also do exercises while I'm in the sewing room. Not really. It's for my ruler, so it doesn't slip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a half. Once you think you have it, go ahead and slice it. Since I've already cut this, I'm just going to go ahead and pin this so this stays together. Because it will come apart. And I don't want it to be off even a little bit. Well, lucky thing that didn't slip because I didn't put my dumbbell on my ruler. Shame, shame, because I have slipped lots of times, trust it. Even on really good fabric. And boy, does that hurt when that's the case. So this can be set aside for another border on another day. This, I'm going to pin this. Then I'm going to flip it like so. I'm going to recheck because remember I didn't pin this right away. Might have shifted, so I'm just rechecking it. When in doubt, always recheck. And don't ever talk with a pin in your mouth like I'm doing right now. Because I'm sure you could swallow it, right? Not today, though, not today. So I'm going to take these two pins out because my ruler will not lay flat on them. And then I'm going to line up with a line on my mat. And then I'm going to come in at 4.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, and 4 and half. I'm hovering it right on the line of the edge of the fabric. Once you think you have it, you can go ahead and slice. And just for GP, I'm just going to pin this together so it doesn't mess up anything right there. I'm going to line it up again with a line on my mat so everything is as straight as it can be. I'm going to pop this pin out because it has served its purpose. And then I'm going to line it up again at 4.5, making sure that it's lined up on my mat, which it needs to come in just a hair. There we go. And find your 4.5. And once everything's lined up, then go ahead and slice. Ah, but with this though, see, I caught myself halfway. Oh, because I could feel for a second it wasn't stable. I don't think anything moved though. Maybe just a hair. I just moved it back just a hair. But even just a hair can cause you to be off. So just remember that. Pull it down. We're gonna pop a pin here just for GP. If you take the time to do this right the first time, you won't have any issues, trust me. That's why I take so much care in literally cutting this perfectly the first time, because I've learned that that's not always the case when you're done and you go to put it up and then it's all, you know, it's not right. So I'm lined up on my mat and then I am lined up now with my ruler. Add your weight. Take that pin out. Now, hopefully, we have a nice straight cut here. But let's take our pins out so we don't hurt ourselves. And now we have 4 perfectly straight borders. Now it only stands to reason if we're going to put straight, pin straight borders onto our quilt top, then the edges around our quilt top, they need to be squared up and straight as well. If we don't, we're going to run into some weird problems. We may have one block that's, you know, a little bit longer than the other on the edge, which happens in quilting. This is real life quilting, right? Sometimes when you try to put a solid piece onto another piece that's crooked, it will pucker or, you know, it'll just do weird stuff. If you've come across weird stuff, then that's probably why when it comes to this step. So let me show you a good one here. This one right here. Look at the edge of my quilt top. I know it's, you know, not that great, but you can see that it's sticking out farther. When you deal with a lot of different fabrics within a patchwork type quilt, the fabrics are all different. The densities, the stretchiness, the thinness, thickness, whatever, they're all different. So this one is reacting differently than, say, this one or this one. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're doing a patchwork type quilt. So you can see here that I'm not going to put, you know, this is like a step up here, and then it juts out here, and then it goes back normal. Well, what I need to do is find the shortest indent on each side. And it's not going to make that big of a deal in the overall look of the quilt. But you do need to trim this. You really do, friends. A lot of people don't trim their quilt tops before they add borders. And you need to, especially if you have, you know, 100 or so blocks going on in your quilt, which I don't think this one is 100. I think it's, or yeah, maybe it is. It's like 100, maybe almost 200. I don't know. I'll figure it out though by the end. I can see that this juts out and this one is the worst one on this particular side. You want to take each side for what it's worth, its face value. So I'm going to look here and find which one actually is the shortest, because that's what I'm going to cut it to. I'm even going to fold it and just see what this side's really doing. I'm just going to line everything up. And it's not because you're not a good, you know, sewist or quilter or whatever the case. It's just, it's the nature of patchwork. So when I line this up all the way, you know, pretty much that's all lined up there and it's folded. Everything's looking about the same here at the fold line. But if you're a little off, that's okay too. So I'm just going to check here and see which one is the shortest. So it looks like this one right here. This block is the shortest compared to every other block on this particular side. Even if I go all the way to here, this is all nice and even there. So yeah. Now I'm not going to trim it with it folded. I'm just not going to, because that's death, friends. It is, trust me. You don't want to trim this quilt top while it's folded. Now if it was one piece, that would be different, but no, it's not. It's patchwork, so we have to go with it. We have to kind of bend our knee to the patchwork. Knowing that this is the shortest block that's on this particular side and the rest are, you know, pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is take this ruler and line up. I'm going to find a line on my ruler and I'm going to find the seams that are going across this way. And then I'm also going to be looking at this inner seam here on the first block. And I'm going to line it up around this block right here. Let me pull this down so you can see. I'm just concentrating here on this particular block. I know it's all nice and pressed, so that's not going to be a problem. There's nothing going to bunch up because it's not pressed. And then I'm just going to look and see, where do the lines fall here? Where do they fall here? Am I lined up on, you know, everything? And then when I look at it going this way, how am I lined up? Now here's the thing. You may be lined up, say with this line on the ruler on this seam, and then this next seam, you might be lined up straight, you know, on a different line on the ruler. As long as it's straight, you're okay. I'm not going to worry about that. But because you can be a little off when you add your quilt blocks, right? I'm off quite a few places. So I already know that about this quilt because of that fact that the fabrics are all different. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm just going to find my best happy medium. So this lines up across there. I'm here at the lowest point. I see that line's going good there. This one's even good down here. And I can even come out just a hair to meet that shorter line. And once I think I got it, lay that there. Go ahead and slice. So you can see here, that's all that came off of that area. But we're not done because we have to go all the way up here. So we know now that this is a good cut, this right here. So we're going to follow along that with the ruler going up top here. So I'm literally lining it up on the edge of my fabric now. And I'm still checking though to make sure that my lines are all good where it concerns going this way. And this little bit I can just take off. There we go. Make sure everything's laying nice and flat too. And actually, let me turn this way because I don't want that drag. Make sure you don't have drag, because if you have drag this way, it's going to skew what the block looks like here. Let me get that nice and flat again. This right here, this will make and break your quilt. Trust me, on the overall visual of it. You don't want it crazy if you don't want it crazy. So this is pretty much all that I took off that side. Now I'm going to go and look at the other side. And I'm going to fold it just like I did the other way to see which one is the shortest. Like I said, it's real quilting, friends. The kind of things that I look at when I am quilting that probably I don't say during a video normally, so I'm telling you now. So line everything up best you can and line up this seam even with this seam, the exact seam, not the allowance. Make sure that, you know, the seam is the seam that you're lining up, so that way you're catching the very, very middle. So it looks like this one right here is the shortest, this dark one. So take note of that. All right, so we got that side all done. Now let's go to the other one, the last one. So that's pretty much what we have, just a few strands on the floor too. So that's, you know, it's not a whole lot, but it's enough to make a difference. Just remember that. So the other thing that you can do to make sure that you are indeed square on your corners of your quilt top is to make sure that everything is laying flat, and then you will just lay your ruler down, your big square ruler. And I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me turn it this way so you can see. Make sure first that everything is nice and flat. And then you just lay your big ruler down, your big square ruler. And yeah, that's dead on square. Oh, see, all that work pays off, I'm telling you, friends. Let's check this one. Sometimes I check, sometimes I don't, but I just wanted to show you what happens when I do check. So everything's laying flat. I'm going to line up that square right on there. And oh yeah, we are dead square again. So let's try this one. I don't think this was the one I just did, was it? Can't remember. Line up, dead square. Line up. This one might be off a little. Let's take a look. Now, you know, it might. Let's see. Make sure everything is on. Nice, nice, nice. Lay your ruler down. And then line up this edge and this edge. So I see a little bit of bowing out of there, so I'm going to cut that. And that's why I do check sometimes. So then I'm just going to trim that off. See? That little bit. And then I think there was just a little bit on this side too. Just a sliver, but it's still there, friends. It's not going in my quilt. The next thing I'm going to do is take one of the strips and I'm going to put it right sides together on one of the sides of my quilt top. And since I allotted for, you know, extra space here, which I suggest as a tip, you do as well, never cut it precisely to fit your quilt top. You always want a little bit of hangover just in case, because there might be, you know, a little bit that you will need to cut off. And I won't say maybe there will be, there will be. So just trust me on that one. Just, you know, about an inch or so hangover. And then I'm going to line this right sides together and I'm going to pin all the way down. So just to save some time, I'm going to take this pinned side and I'm just going to fold it up in here. And just be careful that you do not pin yourself, right? And then when you get to this end, flip it like this. Grab another strip. And lay right sides together and pin. Again, you're going to leave the hang off there. So this is the opposite side that I just pinned the other one on. So I'm going to sew on the two sides first. Now I'm going to go set this up at my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew all the way down this side, roll this up, and all the while unrolling this, and then sewing that side down. So I turned my camera back on so I could share this with you. I thought maybe some of you might need to know what that kind of looks like when I sew this one side while this is rolled up here. So I'm just finishing up this first side. I always backstitch there too. I know I'm attaching it right now, but you know, it's just added insurance. So I'm not going to worry about pressing this until after I get done with both sides. And then you definitely want to press before you put the top and the bottom on. Here I'm just going to kind of unroll that other side, and then I'm going to roll the side that I just sewed up in here. Be careful though not to pin yourself. We've all done that like a million times, right? And then flip it. I didn't think I was going to make this big of a quilt, which surprises me because I thought I was just going to make like another car quilt, you know, for seasonal things. But, you know, plans change when you get going, right? Woo! It got me right there. So that's what that looks like. Tell me in the comments, have you ever done that? Have you ever put your pins in the other roll and got it all set up for your sewing machine? It's efficient, right? Okay friends, I just wanted to share this with you before I went on to squaring this up and putting the top and bottom borders on. I wanted you to notice how straight that edge is. That is what a salvage cut fabric for the border will do for you. It will not bow, friends, not even a little bit. It doesn't stretch, it has no stretch in it. So I just wanted to show you that. I mean, that is so straight, it's crazy, right? So, yeah. So let's square up the corners and then add the top on and the bottom. So you're going to square up each of the four corners once again because you've added this hangover here, and we want to make sure that that is nice and square before we add the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to lay the ruler down, and remember we checked prior to this, you know, point right here that everything was nice and square, and it should still be nice and square once we've added on that non-stretchy salvage cut piece of border. And that is nice and square. And I'm going to do that to the other three, and then I'm going to pin the top and bottom just like I did in the last step. So I won't put that on camera, but that's what I'm going to do next. Let's talk about backing on this particular quilt, or any quilt for that matter. Whenever I choose my backing, I want to choose wisely because it depends on, you know, the time of year and whatnot, if it's seasonal, and so on and so forth. Typically, I love a gauze backing on a quilt. That is the ultimate best backing on a quilt ever, 100%, 1000%, yes. But every now and again, I love to put a real cozy flannel on the back of my quilt. Flannel you can buy really inexpensive too, right? I think I paid like, I don't know, $4 a yard or something crazy like that. But look at how cute it is. It's perfect for the back of my pumpkin quilt. Not only does it have pumpkins on it, it has hot cocoa, it has more gourds, it has socks, sweaters, leaves, and it has the word cozy, I think, somewhere on it. Yeah, right there. And it's really, really soft, too. It's their snuggle flannel cotton fabric. It has a really nice drape to it. I got 4.5 yards of this, which is going to work on this quilt. But what I have to do is marry 2 pieces together. And so that's why I turned on my camera for this, to show you. I typically do not show you this part in my videos, but I never know if people know what to do or if they don't know what to do. So I don't just want to assume that you know what to do with this flannel or backing in general when you get it, because we need a certain width of fabric, and fabric typically off the bolt comes in about 44 inches. Well, I think for this we need like almost 70 inches or 68 or something like that. So we need to take this 4.5 yards, and I folded it, and right here at the crease, so there's the same amount on both sides, I folded it, this is the center. Because remember, it's folded, well, let's see, it's folded once already, like that, and then they fold it on the bolt. So it comes already folded in half. So there's about, you know, 22 or so inches right here, and then so on, right? So I took that, folded it right in half, and now what I'm going to do is just on this fold, I'm gonna take some good trusty scissors, and I'm just going to cut this right in half. Put these trusty scissors away. Now I know a lot of you probably are asking, am I going to pre-wash this? And the answer is no, I'm not. I do not pre-wash any of my flannel. I know that sounds crazy, right, to some of you, but it's totally true. I mean, you don't have to. People are like, oh, but doesn't it shrink up and it looks weird and it bunches? And no, it actually washes up better, if you ask me. It's all in what you want in your quilt. I don't know. Do you want to take the time to wash it and dry it, prepare it? I don't. My time is precious. I know yours is too, but I'm just saying, pick and choose your battles, friends. Washing flannel beforehand, it's not one of the battles I choose, for sure. I want to make sure that if it's directional here, which I believe it is, here we go, that we sew these together in the right direction. So I can see that all the sweaters are facing this way. The word cozy is facing this way. So, you know, that makes it pretty easy, really. So you're going to find the ends, and you want them both going in the same direction. So I'm looking at it, everything is like leaves falling this way. And then I'm just going to flip it like this. I'm not even going to cut the salvages off. I'll do that after I've sewn it all together. Just line it up right on the salvage area. Why not, right? And then I'm going to pop a bunch of pins in. A bunch. I didn't even iron it first, because I figure once I sew it, you know, this one isn't too bad, and after I sew it, that's when I'll totally press everything nice. You just want to make sure that this edge lays nice and flat. I'm a huge advocate for pressing too. So if I tell you that you don't have to press, I can almost like guarantee that you don't have to press when you don't need to. So yeah, and I'm a presser for sure. I mean, I only own the most expensive iron there is, right? My Laura Star, which is awesome, by the way. Check out the link below. If you use the link, it only helps me bring you more of what you love. So you're just going to continue pinning. Now, I'm not sure if you can see from this angle. Hopefully you can. When I go in to sew this, I'm going to actually, you see where that, I can see where the edge of the salvage is, right? Right there. I can see where it comes in and where the fabric actually starts. And if I flip it over, you can really see it because there's words on it, right? So what I'm going to do is make sure that I am a 1/4 inch away from where that salvage starts and start my sewing there. So when I go into trim, I'm going to trim off all that salvage. That is not going to stay on, friends. No, it's not. Yeah, so that's the plan. So I'm going to sew that right now, and then I'll show you how we press it and slice it. So I've sewn this all up, and they are definitely connected. Then I'm just laying it flat here, and I'm going to find where my seam is, and I'm going to come about, you know, a 1/2 inch or so from that seam, which will totally cut off that salvage. I'm not really that worried about my ruler slipping on something like this though, because, you know, it's just a seam allowance. Nobody's going to see it. Now I could have totally have tried to match this, you know, but I didn't, and that's okay too. I mean, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Now a lot of people, this might drive them crazy. This is one of those things where it's pick your battles. I mean, I would have had to have cut off half of this, or half up to here, to match up that sweater with that. You know, it's just not that big of a deal. Once you get all the quilting on there, nobody's even going to look really to notice that the middle and the back is, you know, offset or whatever. So once you get this all nice and cut, you're then going to just press it to one side. Once you get it all pressed over on the opposite side, then you're going to flip it over and press the seam on this side. I know that's going to make some people crazy, right? That not being matched up. Sorry, friends. It's okay though, trust me, it's okay. Once I get my quilting on there, you're not even going to be able to tell. Well, you might, but it's not a big deal. Now, the next thing that I do, that I know not a lot of people do this, and you totally don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I take it over to my sewing machine and I sew like 1/8 of an inch all the way down that seam on this side of the seam. So what that does is it literally will tack this 1/2 inch seam allowance over enough so that it won't try to flip up when I'm trying to quilt it. You know, because once you get all the quilting in, it's not going to flip up. It's just during that time, I don't want it to flip up. I am going to take and put a stitch all the way down right there. Okay, friends, I just wanted to show you what this looks like with the stitch there. It's all nice and down. Nothing's going to flip up. That looks nice. It lays nice and flat all the way down. The next thing that you want to do is take and cut this bigger than your batting and your quilt top. And then lay this wrong side up, then your batting, and then your quilt top. So this is going to be bigger than your batting, and your batting is bigger than your quilt top. Let's talk batting for just a second and how we can piece this all together. I know, like all of you probably, that you have pieces and parts of different batting just hanging around. Well, this is left over from the baby quilt that I made for my newest granddaughter. And so I just wanted to share with you how I have been making my Frankenbatting lately. And no, it's not by putting a zigzag in. Nope, it's surely not. It's this right here. I want you to notice the stretch in here. This is going to be able to give within this batting right here. And it has one sticky side on it and the other side is not. So this is the stuff right here. I'm hoping that you can see it. Hopefully that's in focus for you. It is EK130 Easy K Knit is what this is. And it's a fusible. And it comes in 20-inch in width. Now this right here you can see was $6.49. Now I either got this, it's a Pellon product. I either got it at Hobby Lobby or Walmart on sale. It was like, the good thing about this is it's going to fuse just perfectly within this batting. So I pre-cut just some pieces here. These are about 4.5 to 5 inches in width, and then the length of the seam that I'm trying to mesh together. Now with this easy knit, you will need a damp cloth, which I have right here, because we want these as close as we can possibly get them. Get that corner together. And you're going to want to put that bumpy side, the glue side, down. And I'm going to put it just past where this joint is because I'm going to add another piece going that way. I'm going to take my damp cloth, lay that down, then I'm going to grab my iron. Now you really don't want to spray water at this. You just want to nice and lightly go over top of this batting because you're not going to be mashing it down, not at all. Just lightly over top of it, and let's see how we did. Pressure and all that matters when it comes to this easy knit. Let's see if that adhered, that little bit we did. It did, and it even I mashed it down a little too much, so I'm going to have to fluff this back up because I don't want that mashed at all. I'm just going to go lightly over this. And they say about 10 seconds or so, but I'm thinking this is adhering a lot quicker than that. Yeah, I mean, it is. I'm just going to catch this side, just this edge. Maybe this edge over here. So yeah, that is how I marry together my pieces and make Frankenbatting. So let's talk bias binding for 1 second. So I decided on this polka dot orange flannel for my binding. I ran into a problem here though, because you can see if I do this quilt with rounded corners, I'm definitely going to have to do bias binding. And I think that's what I'm going to do. And I haven't done the corners yet, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this a certain way so that I have success if I end up doing rounded corners. So this is what I've come up with because this is such a uniform polka dot. It's not like a dot that's just scattered and random, just a random toss. It's very meticulous in where it's placed, and that is becoming my demise here as I'm looking at this, trying to figure out how am I going to cut this. So this is what I've decided on so far anyways. And so I turned on my camera right after I think I figured it out so that you can know too what I'm doing. So this is 1.5 yards of flannel, which is more than enough for the binding on this. But I decided that I want to make this 3 inches. But since I have to cut it on the bias, which this is the salvage, we know that runs with the grain. We need the part with the most stretch in it because if we're going to do rounded corners on our quilt, we need our binding to stretch around that roundness part. But since this is the salvage, you can see my polka dots are going up in a straight position. So if I cut them that way, I have to make sure that they're all straight around the entire quilt, which ends up, I guess that's what I'm going to do. But this is one of those problems that you come up with when, you have something like this. What I did was test out the corner here. So I cut off where I thought would be a good cutoff point. So it's just before the dots, okay? And then I put that aside. And then I cut 3 inches over. Since I decided that I wanted to do 3 inches, I cut 3 inches in width, and then I fold it in half like I would traditional binding. And then I just check to see where that would end up, the dots anyways. So if I connect it to, say this is my quilt top here. Put it underneath my mat here. It's gonna be 1/2 inch, right? Because it's connected here. This is what I do. I fuss with stuff like this. Let's pretend that that is the quilt binding. So when I go to lift this up, then when I go to, wrap it to the other side, then this dot will show up all along the edge. So hopefully you can see that. This is what will show up on the front all the way around. One solid dot. That's going to be hard to keep that all straight, but that's what I'm going to try to do, I think. I know, sounds crazy, right? Let's see what the back will look like. I didn't even look at that. So the back will just be orange, so that'll be all right, right? I think so. And if I really mess it up, I can always just leave the orange on the front and the dot, I can, you know, put it on the back, because, you know, the party's always on the front, friends. It's never on the back. So if you remember, it was like this and this. The cutting spot was just in front of those dots. So every 3 inches, I have to make sure that my cut is right in front of those dots. I don't know if I can be that good. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to start right at where this corner edge is down here. Get right in front of that dot. Right in front, and I can see one of them's not participating. So I'm going to, ooh, see, that's the problem. But this is pretty solid fibers here, I can tell, you know, so it's not going to be shifting. It's a thicker snuggle flannel, so we should be good. All right, let's just do it. I'm showing you all kinds of stuff in this video today. Oh my word. We are in front of the dot. I really should have my dumbbell. Nicely set it down just like that. Where'd I end? Okay, we did that. Now you can see here from the little piece I cut, we just went over 3 inches from where that dot was. We have 1, 2, and 3. So we're just going to line it up and we're going to go 3 inches. Oh, I keep forgetting to put my dumbbell on. Once I get a couple pieces cut off, I'm going to sew them together just to see how well they go together too. A lot of thought goes into these quilts, right? I mean, my goodness. Okay, so we have 1 strip down. Let's just mimic this real quick and see. Right, does that go that way? And then that is connected, and then that goes over. That should work. Oh, I hope so. Okay. So if we look at our mock-up, yeah, wow, that might work. So since it was real close to the dot, then we can just go 3 inches over, correct? Is that one of those happy accidents that happen? I just dropped this on the floor. That just might be one of those happy accidents. Let's see. Yeah, because if that lines up there, oh yeah, that is the happy accident, friends. You know what? I never knew what that was until this moment. Happy accident right here. And I didn't even realize that when I picked 3 inches. Right in front of that dot again, and we're gonna hit 3 inches. So friends, I think that this was totally meant to be. I don't know, it's all working out. So these strips right here, I'm gonna take this one and I'm going to lay it down. I marked it right here to show where I was actually laying it. You're going to crisscross it like this and make sure that those 2 salvages are, you know, out of the way, because you don't want that in your quilt. And I'm just, all I did was lay it up to the very last part that I could go. And that ended up being a perfect match. I mean, this is crazy. What you're going to do is just make sure that those line up crisscrossy, just like that. You can line them up on your mat here. You see how those lines go here, and then this one's parallel. Make sure that that one's right on. There we go. And then what you're going to do is just bring in your ruler and then mark your diagonal for your sew line. And usually I do this the opposite way, so I'm showing you all, so it's this way. Pin here, and I'm going to pin on this side because I don't want that going anywhere. Now all I'm going to do is just sew right on that line that I just drew. So I've sewn right on that line that I just drew, and now let's see. Yeah, I mean, Those two might be a little close, but is that the one that's going to show though? I can't remember. Does it go like that? Yeah, no, that one's not even going to show. So I got a little too close to that one, but I think overall, that totally worked. Right? I mean, as good as it's going to get, friends, really. I mean, I'm not like a machine. I can't get it dead on, but I can get it close. Okay, so typically what I would do is then just cut these off, these tails, and they're usually square, but since I'm cutting on the bias on this fabric, it's coming out in this, you know, diagonal shape there. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to just cut off at a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So I'm going to line up the line on my ruler on the thread that I just stitched, and then just cut off a 1/4 inch. And so when I go like that, I'm going to open these two because that'll take away from some of the bulk, because this is a thicker fabric here. And so when we go to make our binding, yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to continue on, and then we'll catch up when we go to put the binding on. It's been so long since I have showed you all my pool noodle hack for putting all my quilt sandwich together. So today's the day. I'm going to show you how to make a quilt sandwich with some pool noodles and some cardboard from like wrapping paper. Yeah. I have used these pool noodles right here so many times I couldn't even tell you, but when I store them, look at what happens. They kind of, you know, get a bend in them, right? So I solved that problem by taking the broomstick off of my broom here in my sewing room and just shoving it in here, and it ends right here where you can kind of see that it bows, right? This is just going to help me keep things straight. So I went out in my garage and looked through my husband's stuff, and I found this thing. It's like a pipe. So it says shark bite. I don't know what that is. So anyway, so it's called shark bite. And what I'm going to do is take this one and put this one through this hole on my pool noodle so that it makes this straight. And I'm going to kind of shove it in there because this one's a little skinnier than my broomstick, but it's going to keep it a lot straighter than if it wasn't there. Now this one right here, my granddaughter, she got a hold of it and tore it up. So what I'm going to do for this one is I have to kind of put this together. So I am going to stick this back in here and kind of shove that. Oh no, this one's not very long on this one. And then I'm going to just find a flat edge here, and then I'm going to tape this together. But you see how that still has a see how that still has a bend in it though? I don't have another long one, so I'm just going to shove it way in this one since this one's pretty straight. And now I'm just going to, you know, I was going to say sew that, but I'm not going to sew that together. I'm going to grab some tape. I have 3 pool noodles that are ready, but I'm missing one and I can't find it anywhere. So I don't know if it got tore up and thrown out because it's been a while since I've used pool noodles to baste my quilt. So bear with me. So I checked my basement and I found some Christmas wrapping paper. I just pulled these out of the Christmas wrapping paper and left the paper there. So hopefully that paper's okay. All I did was take 2 pieces and just put them together because I need, you know, it to be long enough, right? So for this one, I'm going to just kind of tuck this in a little bit and then just shove this in here. So push it in there and you can see it's starting to separate right there. And when I see that, then I know, whoop, wait, oh gosh, this is like a weapon or something. I know that when I see that, when I see that seam come apart like that, I know I should have taped that. So let me just get this on here before it, you know, bends any further. Because the batting, I'm not that worried about. I'm more worried about getting my backing and my quilt top nice and straight. So I think I'm going to use this for the batting. So what I've done is pulled my camera out at a wide angle so you can get a shot, hopefully, of the whole system here. Before I begin though, I'm just going to share with you, I put these 2 tables together. I put this table going this way and then this one this way, and that'll give me totally enough room width-wise to get this thing rolled up. Right here where the two tables met up though, the feet of the tables didn't quite meet up and it left just a small gap there. So what I did was just take one of my mats, put some tape underneath them and just made sure that that stuck there. So that way nothing fell through the hole, you know, the gap there. And this part right here, what's handy about my table in particular, the Husky, and I will link it below, it pulls out a drawer. Well, it has two drawers actually. And it pulls out, and a lot of times what will happen is I'll use it to catch my drag on stuff that I'm doing. I'll just open that drawer up and just lay my stuff out on it. And that way it doesn't go to the ground, it kind of stays up. Gives me just a little bit more table room that I do not have in the sewing room. The first thing is to get your piece of backing, and you're gonna lay that face down, pretty side down, wrong side up. And you're just going to make sure that the part that you're working with first is nice and straight all along this table edge here. Just going to spread out with your hands because we don't want to roll it crooked, so you really want to take the time and make sure that this is straight. I guarantee you if you try this, you're going to be hooked. Before you know it, you're absolutely done and it's like, what? Wait, did I just baste my quilt in like a very short amount of time? Yes, you did. Trust me. So I'm going to take this pool noodle, and it's not quite as long as this backing, but that's okay. We can deal with that. But you are going to grab your pins. Pins are important in this process. So I'm just going to make sure that I have just enough hanging over on each side there. And I'm going to roll it actually toward me, and then I'm going to lift this piece up right here. And I'm going to roll it tight, not super tight so that you're yanking the fabric, but you're pulling it taut enough that it is going to stay. And the lovely thing about pool noodles and pins, it goes right in. And you may have to go at it at an angle because, you know, I have a pole in here and it's going to catch on that. I knew that was going to happen. Then you're just going to take this one and you're going to lift it up. Just the same amount that you did this middle part here. And once you think you have this side pretty even, then you're just going to take your pin and pop it in. And I'm actually going to go a few pins in. Now make sure that this is straight. Grab my pins and pull it taut and pin. Now I'm going to try to lay this as straight as I can, and I'm going to stand back and look at it because I want to make sure that I have this correct. It looks pretty good, but right here we may need to tug just a little bit more, and I'm just a little bit, you know, just to make sure. I'm not too worried about the backing because as long as it's semi-straight, no one's going to even notice. So tug this a little bit so that I bring up a lot of that slack in there that might be there. And then I'm just going to hold it and I'm going to start to roll. Pull this side so that it's nice. Because remember, this particular pool noodle didn't have all the way length of the dowel in it. I'm down here. Now when you get to a point where, you know, you have all the excess there, you can just lift up and pull it towards you. And make sure that, you know, it's laying best that it can. Just for added information, I am starting on the bottom of the print. So this is the bottom of the quilt that I'm rolling up first. I don't think it really matters, you know, but if you start rolling up on the bottom of the quilt backing, then you want to make sure, you know, that you do the same with the batting and the quilt top. The batting doesn't really matter, but the quilt top does. And this is a pretty big quilt too, friends, and I am totally doing it on my table. So I'm going to lift this up, and I am just going to pop a pin right here in the center and over here on this end, and then over here on this end. And then I'm just going to set this aside until the end step. Okay, now to put the batting on. So this side I cut very crookedly, so yeah. So I have to keep that in mind, and so that's why I folded this up kind of. I should have just started on this end, but I didn't. I don't know. So anyways, now I'm just going to I'm using the cardboard one. So I'm just gonna take and lift this up and pop a pin right there. Grab another one. And this is a little skinnier than what I'm used to too, but oh well. And then you're just gonna roll, pull up. Yeah, it looks pretty straight. If any of you buy like batting on a big roll that's one piece, how ideal would that be, right? You could just keep it on the roll and just, you know, roll it out in the next step to exactly what you needed. I say that's a win-win. I don't know if it would work. I haven't done it, but in theory it works. So you're just going to finish up here. And for this, yeah, I could pin maybe, but I think I'll lose my pin first because this is so loose leaf kind of. So I'm going to just set this aside next to the flannel. So I have my quilt top here and it's face up. And I grabbed this pool noodle, and this one is the sturdiest out of all of them. And this one is the one that has my broomstick in it. Let's line this up best we can in the center. We have a little bit of hangover, you know, not much, but we do. Grab my pins. This way, on this one, I can literally see where that border is and how far it's wrapped around, so that's kind of good. That's going to help me gauge. So I'm kind of just making sure that everything's even and then just pinning at an angle because there's a pole in there, which normally isn't. Make sure that everything is laying nice and flat too. This is the one that I take the most care on when I roll up because it's the quilt top. And you know, the quilt top is king around here, right? Okay, that looks so good. Wonderful. Okay, we got through that. So what I've done here is laid a sheet out on my table, and I didn't have enough to go this way, so I did put a towel to make up the difference on that end, because whenever you spray an aerosol, you know, anywhere, and in your sewing room, you know, like today what we're doing, you want to make sure that you definitely open up a window. And if you have allergic reactions to certain things or you're sensitive, wear a mask, friends. So I've taken the pins out and I've laid the roll going away from me. Underneath my sheet right here is a box with fat quarters in it. It's just from my closet. You know, it's just one of those see-through cases, but it was high enough so that when I go to roll this, it's not going to roll off. And so you do want something to, you know, help you out there, whether or not it's a wall or whatever. Sometimes I'll take pool noodles and cut wedges in them and then line those up on the table, and that will help so it doesn't roll off. But my Husky is too thick for one of those, so I had to improvise with that. So the first thing you're going to do is just make sure that everything is nice and laid out, nice and flat. And then you're going to just roll this out as far, as this goes here, because you're only going to be working with this tiny spot right in front of you. Now in today's video, I'm using up this Sulky KK 2000. It's temporary spray adhesive. Now I usually use my 505, but my mom gave me this and it's older. So I don't know if this stuff has an expiration date on it, but I wanted to use it up before it gets any, longer in time. So yeah, we're gonna use the Sulky today. To me, it doesn't work as good as the 505. It may be a little cheaper, I'm not sure. I mean, the little bottle's so little, right? Yeah, it says it's concentrated, and it says that it is safe for our planet. It's non-flammable, odorless and clear, ozone friendly, and so on. But I'm still opening my window, friends, no matter if it says it's plant friendly or whatever. Before we spray anything, whoops, is to lay this batting down to start with. Remember, I didn't pin it. I probably should have, but I felt like the pin was going to come out. So I'm just going to make sure that it's rolled nice. And I'm going to lean it. Oh, this is spray. Let me get this out of here. I'm going to lay this center to where my backing is, because I want to make sure that I have enough coverage for my quilt top. So I think I need to go just a little bit more this way with this. And this is now butting up against there. I'm also going to be lifting up and kind of pulling taut a little bit so that I get that slack out of here. Lift up, kind of pull out, even if you have to roll it up a little bit more. Okay, so I still haven't sprayed anything yet. I'm just setting up. I want the edge of this right here to come just like this so that I have some batting sticking out and I have also some backing sticking out. So what you want to do here is make sure that your edges are the same amount away from each other, pretty much, that this is centered, okay? Okay, so I shut my camera off and fixed this area right here because my drawer wasn't open all the way. So I wanted it open all the way because I wanted maximum rollage here. So I opened it up, and this is still here to catch the roll, but I had to prop something in my drawer to help keep that open. So I can roll that out even a little bit more and roll this out and roll that out. I like working with a little bit more space than what I was having here. Okay, what you're gonna do, lift this up and lift this up. And then you're just going to spray right in this area, right on the very end here. Now you're going to take this batting, stretch it out kind of so that it lays nice, and you're just going to smooth it right over what you just sprayed. Once that's on there, on top of the flannel, then you're going to go ahead and spray again. Whew, good thing I got my window open. Ozone friendly, it says. Oh. Then I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to lift this quilt top up. I'm going to start in the middle here, and I'm just going to press that down nicely. Before I go all the way to the end, I'm going to come here. You don't want this to flop on here accidentally because it will stick. And then, it might take the initial stickiness anyways away. So that side's down. Come over here, give us a little tug. Make sure everything is nicely together. Yeah, I don't think that sticks very good. I don't know. I'm going to come in with some 505 because I just feel like That is not sticky enough for me. Spread and spread. Looking good. This one has a big bow in it, but I think we're going to be okay, hopefully, prayerfully. Just want to make sure it's on there tight though, and then you're going to pin. Come over here to the side. And remember, I cut this odd shaped at, at a funny angle to begin with, so that's why it looks like there's more coming on here. But I'm paying attention to this line here within my quilt top. I'm just wrapping that like so. To add a little bit of roll in there and get that going, and make sure that it's even. Now we know it's sprayed all the way up to here, right? So now what you're going to want to do is lift this and give this a pull. When you give this a pull though, it's going to pull your sheet, and I don't know, I didn't do a very good job of setting it on there because look, it's just going to pull. Okay, that's all right. I'm just going to go for it. I took that sheet off of here because there's no way I can roll this with that sheet. I thought I could, but I can't. I think last time I used my big Sullivan table, and so I had my big, huge cutting mat that was clear and cleanable, but you know what? It is what it is. This is how I'm going to roll with it because, yeah, I'll just be really careful. Okay, so I have sprayed up to here. Now what you're going to do after you've just rolled a tiny bit here, you're then going to roll this to you, okay? Just like that, and you can kind of feel where your last adhesive spray was. And then you're going to pull this towards you like that. You can lift that up a little bit if you want. I'm kind of doing it backwards to the last thing I did. I don't know. So I'm just going to put my 505 here real good. Make sure that this puppy sticks, right? Once you have that sprayed real good, then you're going to take your batting, and with your hand on the inside here, you're going to then press it out. Make sure that this is straight. Next, you're going to take your spray adhesive and you're going to go right in here and give this a good spray where your quilt top's going to go. Lift this up. Take your hands. I usually start in the middle here and lift it up. And then kind of work your way onto the sides. Now when you get to this point, you're then going to fold with this. Take this and make sure that that is tucked really good. Remember, you want it taut, but not overly taut. Make sure that that's all tucked in. And again, I'm using this as my guide, my blocks. Roll up. Because remember, all this is already fused together. And I'm going to take my hand here too, and I'm going to go across, just like that, kind of smoothing that all out again, right? It's just one of those little things you do just to make sure if there's any puckers in there, you're going to catch them. And you're going to continue to roll and roll. Roll up like that. Make sure that that quilt top, though, is not buckling or puckering or anything. This next move, this is where you need a slick surface. You really do. You're going to go like this and pull this all the way towards you, just like that. Now you're going to pull this to you, the quilt top, and you can see again, I can see right here where it's catching from the spray adhesive, and that's good. You want that because that, you know that that's where you're going to start. Make sure that this doesn't flop on the floor too. If you had something to keep this here, that would be good too. I'm going to pull this toward me. And I can already feel like there is adhesive on this part right here. So that's where I'm going to start. This quilt is worth it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and spray this all the way down. I'm only working with a very small amount. Little small space here. You can pull this toward you a little bit, even more. Make sure that that's nice and flat too before you spray it. Now you're going to take this and roll this right here out. Put your hand in here. Just like that. Next, add more spray here. The other thing you want to know about spray basting and pole noodling is that you want to quilt your quilt within about 24 hours, 48 hours at most, at least, or whatever, because what happens is the spray adhesive kind of puckers it all together, kind of suctions it in, and you may have trouble quilting it at that point, so you never want to do it and leave it like I did for one quilt for 10 months and then decide to quilt it. Yeah, don't do that. So when you get to the end here, you can unpin that backing pole noodle and get that out of there. Once that's disconnected, you can set this aside. Next, you're going to unpin your batting. Set this aside. Make sure that you have a nice connection here. You can go ahead and unpin this. Set this aside. Take your broomstick out and put your broom head back on here. Yeah, that's what I need to do because my floor is a mess. Keep spreading everything out nice and nice. Okay, lift this up. Get the last little bit of your spray on this piece and put your batting down and then the top. A lot of black threads in my sewing room though right now. I've been dealing with black all week. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my basting buddy here, and I made this, it's on one of my videos. All I did was take a jar, put a hook on the, on the top of it, and then I put a rubber band around this little pouch filled with poly, and then it's, easy to take these on and off because you keep these open all the time, because you want to be able to take them off and put them right in your quilt to baste it. But what I do is I put extra insurance here, and I put pins in my quilt basting. Not everyone does. I do. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to make sure that I hit my table down there, that I'm going through all the layers. And I'm going to go like that. And I know there's a little hook that you can, get those on and off if you have really bad arthritis and such. So I'm just going to pin all along here. So once I get as many pins as I want in there, I'm going to just go like this and just fold it, because we are not going to keep it on this pool noodle to quilt it. A lot of people have that idea that you do that, and you don't. You do not. I'm still spreading out as I go, even though it's together. It's just helps to keep any bubbles out of, our quilt top. We don't want any puckers or anything. You take this pool noodle out, set it aside. I've put the rest of my pins in here, and this quilt top is officially sandwiched. On to the next step. Now I wanted to show you how I set up for my free motion quilting. You can see there my Juki is on its side, and I have some wall hooks, some twill tape coming down from that, and the quilt itself is held with binder clips, so that way there's no drag when I go to free motion quilt this. I also have a couple of tables off to the side there. Just imagine though that Hey Boo is on here and not my last quilt. But I did want to make sure that I put a visual in here, and all the links to my Juki and all the information is down in the information box below. Go ahead, check it out. I get all of my Juki stuff from Juki Junkies because they're the absolute best. Before we even think about putting our binding on, we need to trim around our quilt first. The way that I do that is take my biggest square ruler, which is 12.5 inches. I wish I had a bigger one, but I don't. So this is what I got. I go first on the corners and cut all the 4 corners square. Then I take and go down the sides, and then I go in and round the corners off. You're going to make sure that everything is laying nice and flat before you cut anything. And then you're going to lay your ruler, your biggest one, down. You're going to butt it up to the corner, best that you can, evenly. And then you're going to look in here and see where that lines up on an inner line inside the quilt, and then over here as well. And once you see that you have a pretty good, evenness, which I do, this line going across here is coming perfectly in with my blocks in here. And this one I can't tell because it's black, but it's right there. That one, okay, if I push this a little bit that way, this is where you can fudge a little bit to get things straight-ish. And once you think you have it, you're just going to come in and just cut the corners only. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and cut, let's see, I'll cut this corner over here. So this is the one side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this so I can show you how to slice down the side. I'm going to do the same thing, find your best measurement. Come in here and look here. You may have a little bit peeking away from the ruler, and you might have some even peeking out from the ruler, but it shouldn't be any more than, an 1/8 or 1/4 inch. But whatever the even measurement is, take it. Because you don't want a wonky quilt. You just don't. And here I can see, I don't know if you can see, I'm going to lift this up, and I want you to notice I have a little bit there. What happens when you quilt your quilt, things start to mash together and spread. So that's why you have these little pieces. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can see that little bit of black peeking up there. I'm going to have to cut that off because that's what happened here. And once you think you have it, then you're going to go ahead and cut. And on this one right here, I have a little bit of batting showing there because that kind of dipped in from where I had caught some of the quilting. These 2 corners are done. You want this to lay perfectly straight in front of you and flat, the side that you're working on. Then you're going to bring in your really big ruler, biggest one, widest one that you have, and longest one. So I know this is cut here, and it's going to be square along here. So I want to try and follow this line right here. Your best bet here is to look on the inside lines of your block. That's going to totally help you. I also really pay attention to the black and where the black is lining up. And actually it's lining up a little bit on the inside. So I'm trying to really match that line of black. So I'm following it all along here, and then I'm going to look in here. I'm okay here, okay-ish. Remember, you're trying to find that median mark. And I can see I'm going to have to cut a little bit of black off here. But that's the name of the game, friends. Lay out everything nice and flat. Line up down here where you know that you had that for sure line. Line up on the inside, which, gosh, looks a little off there, friends. I'm going to find my median mark somewhere in the middle. Once you think you have it, go ahead and slice, but make sure that, things are laying flat. I don't think I like polyester batting, just FYI. I don't think I do. I don't like to work with it. It's too much flying in the sewing room. I can see the fuzzies on everything, and I don't like it. So I may find an alternative. I know there's like 80/20 and stuff. I don't know that I've really ever used it, but I really do enjoy a wool batting and a cotton batting. So yeah, find that line along here. And we're pretty close to that. So I'm actually going to pull this down even more. I want you to be able to see that. I hope you can. I've cut up to here and I've cut up to here. Now you want to find that middle spot on the side. So you only have one cut left. So what I'm going to do is line it up down here along this edge. And I'm going to come up here and line it right along there. And I am going to look here, but I'm not going to pay too much attention to it because I know that when I make this cut right here, this is going to be my final, because that little bit that's in there, this is connected here, and this is connected here, and both of these are straight from our initial side corner cuts, right? And there's that. So now we have one of the sides all done up. Before I shut my camera off, though, I'm going to show you how to do the rounded corners, and then I'm going to shut my camera off and finish this and turn it back on when we go to put the binding on. This is just one of those extra large paper plates, or you can use a bowl. I use that a lot too to round my corners. All I'm going to do is just lay it down here and find that curve mark. Use a heat erasable pen. And just make that curve. You're just coming up to the edge here, and you're coming up to the edge here. So hopefully you can see that I kind of messed up on the first line right over here. So there's my mark. Boy, everything catches on black, doesn't it? Oy. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut this rounded corner, because if I use my rotary cutter, I might veer off because I don't really have a round template, so to speak. So this is what I'm going to do. So using the scissors, I'll have more control. So you just go in and slice it off. And that's how you round some corners. I'll finish this up and I'll meet you back when we do the binding. So here is one side of the quilt, and here I've taken and just put, I don't know, it's about probably 15 inches or so left that is not sewn. And then I started sewing here with my left compensating presser foot. And then I've sewed 1/4 inch all the way around the corner here. I'm going to set my camera down so you can see how I go around the corner. This left compensating presser foot by Juki is the most awesome foot in the whole wide world. It not only helps you tack your binding down, but it lets you tack it down precisely. So there's no headache here, friends, none at all. So when we go to flip it around to the other side and sew, you do need the right compensating presser foot in order to get that down just as nice as you do the back. But I don't have that foot yet. I have it on order though, and if you don't have one, you should totally order it too. It's from Juki Junkies. All the info is down in my information box. Check it out. You can see here that that binding butts right up against to the bulk of your quilt top and to the edge of your binding. And you just guide it through. There's no thinking about it. There's no tape here on your sewing machine, nothing, unless you want it there to help guide you. But honestly, you don't need it when you have this. One tip I can give you here is just lay it down and let the sewing machine do its work. You don't want to yank, and you don't want to have too much slacking. You want it to be laying just nicely so that we can fold it over and it won't be pulling and there won't be slack. So just take your time and make sure that you pivot your quilt along with the sewing machine. If you have a pair of tweezers, these work really nice. You're going to grab the binding raw edge and pull it right up to the quilt top raw edge. And then you're going to take the nose of those tweezers and just hold it down. Adjust your quilt if needed. Grab that raw edge again. stopped here, you're going to find the middle spot here from where you stopped on this side. Fold this back onto itself, like so. And then you're going to bring this one up and fold this onto itself, just like it's laying there. Just like where you attached it here, you're just laying it onto itself. You're going to fold it here. This is the center somewhere from the ends where you stopped. And then you're going to leave 1/8 to 1/4 inch right there gap. And then you're going to press this with your hot iron. We need to get these right sides together, but first we need to open this up right off of there and put a dot with your heat erasable pen within that cross where we pressed it. So you should have from when we folded it and then when we folded it just onto itself just now. You should have that mark pressed. And then you mark that right there on the inside as well. This one, you're going to open it up and you're going to do the same. You're going to put your mark there and you're going to put it there on the inside. What you're going to do is pick up the slack here though first before we connect anything. Give that a good fold. Clip that so that way all this bulk's out of your way and you have room to sew this thing. So flip these back like that and back like that. Then take this one here and just lay it down so that it's face up. Now take this one and just bring it around and put that right on top of that one so that your dots are together. Take your pin, go through the dot, and then go through the other dot. What you want is this crisscross shape when we made the binding, exactly how we did that. Next, take your ruler, lay it down, lay corner to corner, and then make your mark. Pin it here. Now let's see if this pin goes through to the other side and hits the other dot. I hope so. Yes, that's good enough. Okay, now prayerfully this worked. Next you're just going to sew right on that line and then we'll see if we did it right. Okay, I have not undid anything yet. I've sewn right along there and now I'm going to unpin, take my clips off, and let's see. Oh yes, oh my goodness, finally. Oh yeah, I think that was 5 tries. I think I got it my 5th try. I haven't done it in a while. I don't know why I haven't done it in a while. I think I have, but I don't know. I just had like this brain thing going on. I don't know. So anyways, yes, this is at the point where you've sewed it on the diagonal. Now you're going to see if it needs to be tighter or not. And that, I think that's going to fit perfectly in there. You'll know if it's too tight or if it's too loose right here. If it's too loose in here, then you want to unpick and resew. If it's too tight, then just go in a little bit more. I'm going to take one at a time because I don't want to cut anything I shouldn't. So I'm just going to come in and at 1/4 inch. Make sure there's nothing on the other side that you're going to hit. Now you can open this seam right here and press that. And then you can finish sewing your 1/4 inch all the way down. Okay, friends, I sewed this down. This is where I stopped on this side, and this is where I stopped on this side, and then this is that center piece that I put on here. I just wanted to show you what this looks like when we turn it over. This is what we bound together just now. So we flip that like that. Now these dots are close to each other, but you know what? I'm not going to fight that battle. That is what it is because that's where my dots ended up. So I think all in all, the fussy cutting of the dots, it totally worked out. Now we're looking at the right side of this quilt. So then you're just going to lift this binding up and over. And one of the tips that I can give you when it comes to flipping the binding up and over, the seam allowance right here needs to be up close on the inside of this binding. So you want to make sure that you press this down really good, hold it with your fingers, and then lift this up. You don't want it to be super, super tight so that it rolls in here, but you want it to be laying flat right up to the inside of where this creases over. And then you want to pop a bunch of clips in. So as far as the curves go, they're super simple. You're just going to do the same thing. You're just going to flip this over and make sure that that curve is pushed out and it is hitting within the fold of the binding. And once you have it, you're going to clip it. This is very important because if we don't do this, then we are going to have gaps in here. And you're going to be able to feel with your finger that there is definitely a gap in there. And you don't want that in quilting. You want that to be enough snug that nobody is going to be able to feel that and feel a gap in between at all. Then you're going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch right along that edge right there. And then that should show up somewhere in here. And I do have my white on the bottom, so it's not going to show up black at all on the other side. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Okay, friends, are you ready to see her? After about 2 weeks worth of filming and after 30 hours or so of editing, oh yeah, takes a long time, friends. I finally finished Hey Boo. Before I show you her, do me a favor. Click that like button and share the link of this video to your favorite quilting friend. Without further ado, Hey Boo. Oh my word. I can tell you this right now, I absolutely love that fussy cut binding that I put around this quilt. And the rounded corners, perfect. The eyelashes, love it. Oh yeah. I love Hey Boo. I hope you do too. Now remember at the beginning of this video, I told you that I had a personal announcement to make, right? Now most of my faithful viewers, they probably know what I'm about to say, right? Yes, my daughter had her baby girl, and her name is Julia. Oh, and she's so darling. Oh my goodness. Now that happened a couple of weeks ago, so that's why I haven't really put anything out, and I've been on the sidelines working on Hey Boo, and it's just been a whirlwind of being a Mimi again. She couldn't be more perfect. Thank you so much for all of your well wishes. Take a look at your screen right now. If you enjoyed today's video, then you are sure to enjoy the video that I have handpicked for you that's on your screen right now. Go ahead, click on it so we can keep learning together. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.